Once a month or so, Dr. David McKenzie drops into Studio 4 to chat about couples coupling and uncoupling. Dr. McKenzie is a former theologian turned couples counselor and sex therapist. It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. David back to Studio 4 to tell us more. A former theologian or always a theologian? I never know what to say.
Well, my daughter-in-law says she still can't get over it. The Reverend David McKenzie, sexologist.
Sure
It's
not.
kind of an oxymoron.
With a master's in honors in theology, history, and counseling, and a PhD in human sexuality.
Yes, yes.
Well, you're here today to talk about conflict, and you've often said a little conflict in a relationship can be a good thing.
Absolutely. In fact, in research, there are three types of couples that really will last the long haul. The first type of couple are those who have to work out everything. Every little issue needs to be worked out. They'll last the long haul. The second couple are those who can just let each other be. They don't have to work through every conflict and problem. The third couple is the one you were referring to in your introduction. They have a Donnybrook, a dust up, and then they come back, they make up, they work it through. They will last the long haul.
Well, it also depends on the type of Donnybrook you're having, I assume. Because there are some Donnybrooks that aren't all that pleasant.
Exactly. Well, it's interesting, in the research that Gottman has done down in Seattle, he identifies actually four, he calls them the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And he says they're key components in why couples cannot work through conflict. They're criticism, contempt, stonewalling, and defensiveness. And in the couples workshop that we're going to be holding, that we're going to mention later, in fact, we're going to be working with helping couples to hear each other non-defensively, to learn not to run from issues, but to engage them, not to stonewall, not to be defiant. Contempt will kill a relationship. It's usually a sign of blaming the other person and holding the other person responsible for whatever issues are going on in the marriage. And it's not until a couple, each partner says, I'm willing to meet the enemy is me, I'm willing to see what part of the equation I play in this relationship, that things really begin to move on. And criticism, of course, is one of those factors in a relationship in which a person can feel flooded, can feel overwhelmed with never being able to make the grade. So we want to work on all those issues.
Well, sometimes everything is going smoothly until the second martini.
Yes.
I don't know if you've heard about that,
Yes.
but I know in my relationships I always say one martini and not two, because give me a second.
It's interesting. I send couples...
And I forget to back down or back off.
You're right.
Or not go there.
It is a depressant, and it can make people irritable and bring up issues that really are not big in the relationship. I give the first piece of homework I give couples when they come in is a little marriage quiz. It's actually, again, taken from Gottman's work. And so I have them take it home and discuss it with each other, but I say, don't drink any wine when you're doing this. Have a cup of tea.
No, I have friends who had to make that decision early in their relationship, and they had a long and happy marriage. When they drank martinis, they fought. When they drank two, they fought. So he said, I'm going to start drinking Toby beer, and this relationship will last forever. So it's
wise man.
Until the end. He drank beer, and she had her martini.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it worked out.
Sure, yeah.
What about couples who never fight? They never have a crossword. They say, we never disagree. I am suspect of that.
Well, you're right, but that actually describes the second couple I'm talking about, in which couples who can last the long haul are those who are not necessarily uptight about working through every issue.
Right.
But as John Bradshaw said in one of his talks, without the possibility of conflict, there's no possibility of relationship. And I'm suspect too. Usually it can indicate that one partner's in control if there's no conflict.
And one partner's bottling, like repressing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Want to say it, afraid to say it, can't say it, just not worth going there. And I would think if you have put a stop in it all those years, at the end you're about ready to explode.
Well, I call it gunny sacking. And that's why couples need to learn through effective communication and conflict resolution how to take care of business as they go along. I'll often use the example of walking into the forest to have a picnic, and you see a little smoldering ember and you just ignore it. You go off and have your picnic, and 3 hours later you come back, it's a blazing forest fire. Take care of it while you can handle it. Again, Gottman refers to failed repair attempts. And I've mentioned it before on the show that every couple has their funny little way after an argument or an upset of a poke, a prod, a look of let's make up. And those couples where they say just go jump in the lake, they will not last. is couples who engage each other.
And can laugh about it at some point.
As long as they work it through. If they laugh before they've worked it through, they haven't worked it through. The biggest issue, and one of the key components of effective communication, is non-defensive listening. Hearing your partner. I recall once when I was a pastor in a church, 2 churches, in which they were highly conflicted. I mean, join a church and you'll see conflict. And it's like a big dysfunctional family, most of them. And I finally phoned my bishop and I said, what do I do with this congregation? He said, have a native talking circle. I said, what's that? Well, sit in a big circle after morning communion, and you have a talking stick and they just say their mind and then they give it to someone else. Well, I did that. About 80 of us gathered in the church hall. The church came together marvelously afterwards. Why? Because they felt heard. Hearing, being heard is very healing.
And being valued. And if you can hear what I cannot say, and often you'll watch a couple in conflict, and they may be fighting about the car, but you know, underneath that is what they're really fighting about. Do you know that? I should ask you the question.
Well,
you're the therapist.
It's also called emotional intelligence. And when a person is emotionally intelligent, it means that they are in touch with what's driving them. A couple who are chronically in conflict are usually dealing with deeper issues within their own childhood and family of origin, and also long-term relationship issues. So Socrates said, know thyself. Oftentimes what we do is, instead of responding to our partner, we're responding to a memory that's triggered by something our partner says. So we get very angry, or we overlay it with that memory, and our partner wears all of that stuff. Instead of saying, whoa, that's triggered something in me, it's nothing to do with you, just know I'm walking on very tender ground.
How do you work with a couple when one of them says to you, I'm just not happy? They don't even know what's wrong. They're just not happy, one of them. Or he says, I can't please her. No matter what I do, I can't please her. Where do you start? Trying to figure out what it really is.
Usually that is, I don't have all the answers, but usually that is a key indicator that there are long-term underlying issues that have not been resolved in the relationship. If for female sexuality, they need to feel emotionally, mentally, spiritually connected. Men, as I've said before, have evolved to have sex anywhere with anyone. Doesn't mean we're all pigs.
You notice.
Now, don't look at me that way.
No, I know. Always happy. If you want to do that, I'm happy.
But if you're in a relationship where your female partner, whether you're in a lesbian relationship or a straight relationship, where your female partner is not feeling connected or heard, where there are unresolved issues, that partner is going to start pulling away from you. It's just too unsafe to get close.
What about commitment? Where, say you're not married, you're a couple, and you want to get married, and one of you is resisting, or you don't feel the person is on the same page as you are, you start to resent it. How do you get there if you're with a commitment phobe?
Frankly, I feel very deeply for women who reach around 28, 29. They're right now at the edge of their reproductive threshold, and there's a reason why they've met a commitment phobe. And that needs to be explored with where they come from in their family of origin. There is this tendency, if you have an emotionally unavailable mother or a deep abandonment issue in your childhood, that you'll either choose individuals who will cheat on you or leave you, or you will have a history of choosing individuals who are not available for you, or you will shut down the relationship partway through. So you have a series of failed relationships. It's not until a person gets in touch with that stuff they begin to realize, what's drawing me to individuals who can't commit? There's something in me that's sending that message.
Something in me that can't commit. Fear of getting hurt.
Well, I'm talking now about the person who wants commitment but is not finding it.
Okay.
But switching it over to the person who cannot commit, it's usually an indication of a deep, deep hurt, either from childhood or maybe a series of relationships.
Well, some therapists will say, if you're not happy, look at you.
I
It's not
agree with
somebody
that.
else's fault if you're not happy. It's not somebody else's fault.
Couldn't agree more.
If you can't find someone to commit to you, you have to figure out what part of you is afraid of that.
And, you know, you should be in psychology. You're excellent. That's exactly right. That's what I'm saying.
Could you
want
pass
to change
that?
places?
Could you pass that along? But it's so true,
It's
because
100%
I think
true.
Whenever you have a fight with someone or you're afraid in a situation, if you can think, what is this saying about me?
Sure.
And who I am and what I fear or what I love or what I'm not doing for myself.
Sometimes a person can be so addicted to the relationship that's very damaging to them. They need almost a 12-step program to see that and get out of that relationship.
Sure. When couples fight,
Yeah.
I know you say often, don't generalize. Don't use words like never
Yep.
and always, like you never do this and you always do that. And how about the one who remembers the fight you had 10 years ago?
Yeah.
And now you're having a fight about something completely different,
Yeah.
and they remember and bring it up and lay it on.
I'm going to go back again and again that a person who cannot get over old insults and old injuries, it's either has not been worked through or childhood stuff is getting in the way of that.
My mother always said, always have the courage to say what you don't want to say. It will
Yes.
always move something ahead. And it's difficult because you know what you're feeling inside, and it's very hard to blurt it out.
It's interesting, there was a great movement in the 19th century called the Oxford Movement in the Church of England, and it was an Anglo-Catholic movement towards more Catholicism. What they discovered in that movement was if you raise hell, if you speak out, if you shake the foundations, change will happen. If you are just a kind, nice person who never shakes the foundations, no growth will occur. And in the book, How to Fight Fair in Love and Marriage, the author says nice guys wreck relationships, or nice women. They'll never confront, they'll never raise an uncomfortable issue, and what happens is it gets buried and the relationship ends.
I've watched that in a couple friends of mine where she never draws the line, and in this case, she's a she. Never draws the line, never makes him mind. And I don't mean
Never
that.
makes him mind?
Mind. Do you know what I mean?
No.
He can come home at 4 in the morning drunk, and she doesn't say,
Sounds codependent
you won't
to
do
me,
that
Fanny.
again, right? Or the dinner's waiting at 4 a.m. or something like that. And I have a theory, and it's totally a theory, that men will act out until you tell them to stop.
You have a bad view of men. We're not this
don't.
bad.
I just, or women will act out. Like they just keep doing till you finally say, you know what, darling, I love you and I don't want you to do that anymore. If you continue to do that, I'm going to go to the hotel.
I seriously hear what you're saying. In a relationship where a partner is letting his or her partner cross the line, it's a sign of a
constantly.
codependent relationship.
Okay.
They're actually enabling the person to continue in that bad behavior. And until a couple draws boundaries and stand within those boundaries, and you're not permitted to cross those willy-nilly, that's when the relationship becomes healthy.
Well, certainly in the olden days, many women stayed because they were afraid they wouldn't have any money.
That's right.
And that the husband was working and they weren't, and they stayed for all the wrong reasons. Fear of not being able to take care of themselves. Not all women, but some.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, there are relationships in which there are those factors. Nobody stays in a relationship for just a pure reason. I'm always suspect of that. There are a variety of motives of why we stay in. Some are far more dominant than others. But I once heard my sister-in-law say, we could never get separated now. We're so enmeshed in business and in money. I mean, it's like a business transaction.
And it is,
that doesn't
at
mean
some
she didn't love
level.
her husband, but I'm just saying that.
No, I understand. At some level, you have to do the math.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right?
Yeah.
And before we go to the I'm a goner home.
Yeah, well, you've got children dependent on you and everything. Yeah.
But it's a wonderful thing to see when you are in the what I call the I'm a goner home. To a couple that has worked it out after 50, 60 years together, and they're in sync. And they really like each other.
But that takes work every day. It's not the great big, go on a big trip once a year and work it all out. You've got to have the courage and the stamina to confront those issues and work them out daily.
What do you do if you're married to someone who is silent when you fight? Will not fight, refuses to fight, doesn't like to fight, will not go into any issues?
Stonewalling.
Yeah.
and frankly, for a person that is like that, they need to come for counseling. They need to get some outside help. Likely, he's very afraid of raising uncomfortable issues, fearing that she or he will leave the relationship, probably a deep fear of conflict. When you find adult children of alcoholic parents, they have a profound sense of a fear of conflict because they've been raised in a family. They've got to keep it together. Conflict will destroy the system.
My family.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody's balancing.
Yeah.
Lots of eggshell walking.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Don't go there.
Yeah.
And it seems to me in couples too, often there's one issue or two issues.
Yes.
And no matter what the fight's about, it's always about that issue.
Well, Gottman refers to all couples have what he calls perpetual issues. In fact, relationships that last over 30 years actually have an average of 8 irreconcilable differences. So it's not the fact you're different. That's why you got together.
Sure.
It's how you handle the conflict.
Exactly, because if you keep bringing it up, we all know as thinking humans that there are issues we just can't talk about. Don't go there. It's a no-win.
Yeah.
Back off.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why you don't have the second martini.
You're a socialist, I'm a conservative, we're not going to meet. Yeah.
So, but if you have the second martini, you forget to back off.
That's exactly right.
If you know what I
you
mean.
lose your boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So effective fighting is a good thing.
Effective communication.
Effective communication.
Conflict resolution.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you're going to have a couples weekend retreat
Yes.
soon, November.
Yes. In November 14th and 15th at the Fairmont Waterfront. It's going to be advertised in the Vancouver Sun and the National Post this Saturday.
Do you have to be a married couple, or can you just be a couple?
Oh, you can be a couple, you can be a gay lesbian couple, you can be straight, you can be married or not married. It's for couples who are in long-term relationships. And the theme is effective communication, conflict resolution, and an entire day devoted to sexual enrichment in the relationship.
Oh.
And we have 4
A hot
professionals.
time at the Waterfront Hotel,
doing that.
perhaps.
Yes, well, don't get too afraid.
No.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Dr. David McKenzie, Effective Communication, Conflict Resolution, and Sexual Enrichment for Couples on November 14th, Couples Weekend Retreat. Coming up, we do some serious stargazing and chart reading with popular international astrologer Georgia Nichols. Next.